Hello, welcome back to the Real World Garage. We're back today with Project Sonoma, and we're going to do a quick update after engine rebuild. We're going to go over a couple of things that we've had a problem with and get into them and show you how to fix them. Okay, so one of the problems we had after we put this truck back together and first put it on the road, we'd be riding along and you would look and your temperature gauge would be just above, right around 190 to 200, and you'd just be riding along and all of a sudden it would shoot up to 260. First couple times it happened, it freaked me out. I thought something was wrong with the engine, but there was no spark knock, there was no, you could come out and you could touch everything. It wasn't gurgling and boiling and all that. So I figured that it was probably the temperature sender that I had broken and pieced back together. So I went and bought another temp gauge sender and put it in, and it did exactly the same thing. Okay, so what I want to bring you around to is one of the things that we changed with this engine was we put a 195 degree thermostat in it to bring the oil temperature up, because we had been running it with 160 degree or 165 degree, something like that, temperature thermostat. And what I noticed when I tore the old engine down was that there was a lot of sludging in the oil. So in my mind, what I'm thinking is that the engine oil temperature is not getting up high enough, getting into a proper operating temperature for your oil to not sludge, because motor oil is designed to run at 180 and above, up to around 210, something like that. So we put a different thermostat in it, and that gauge, the factory gauge that's on the dash, had never been cycled into that range. So what I'm thinking is there's actually something wrong with the factory gauge. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the original factory gauge and put an external mechanical gauge somewhere on the dash. So that's what we're here to do, and that's the explanation. All right, we've been doing a little research and trying to decide where we're going to do gauge placement. In this truck, there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of places that are really nice to put a gauge. You can put them under dash, but when you're riding down the road, you gotta take your eyes off the road, you gotta look down. So we did a little looking and a little measuring, and right above on this 91 GMC Sonoma, there is a block off plate just above the headlight switch. So you take that down, there is absolutely nothing behind it. And it's going to be really tight, but we're going to try to drill this 30-year-old plastic very carefully, so we can either look like heroes or we're going to look like chumps. Let's try it. All right, well, we've got a piece of wood to back it up, but put a small mark to center it about where it should be. It's going to be very tight to try to get in between these mounting lugs for the switch bracket and the top of this piece. So got it marked, and all what we're gonna do is drill. Whoop, and the drill's walking. We're gonna try to drill through very slowly. Okay, we have a pilot hole and we're centered. Now, this is where you flip the piece over and take your ever-loving sweet time. cutting through more at the top than the bottom. We need to angle it a little bit. Making progress. Let's try drilling from the other way for just a little bit. Yeah, buddy, we're getting there. We're almost through. Several places. For whatever reason, it's not going through on this side. We're just going to keep going. Take our time. And there we go. Hallelujah. And we didn't break it. What do you know about that? Now, let's see if the gauge is going to actually fit. It looked like it was going to be tight. So hang on, let me get the gauge. We'll see if it's going to fit. It may be too small, but helps get that wire through there. Get. It's gonna be a little tight, but I have some grinding rocks that I can carefully expand this hole just a tinch more, and I may even have a hand file that I can use. Main thing to remember is when you're doing stuff like this, don't get in a hurry. All right, well, I got my grinding rock available, and we're gonna go ahead and start carefully opening this hole up. I'm not exactly sure what size this hole saw is, but I knew it was really, really close. But we shouldn't have to open this hole up too much, and we're gonna do that, so. Right, well, we ground it down and it's an exact fit. It slides right in just like it's supposed to. And just doing a little mocking up to make sure that there's nothing going to be interfering back here, and there's nothing there. So, just as the Vice Grip Garage says, old Derek, it's like factory. All right, well, we've got to get under the dash now that we have the mounting location sorted out, and you can see right there, I don't want to focus on it, but there's a round plug right there that if this was a clutch vehicle, if it had a standard transmission, that would be where the clutch master cylinder would be located. They put a plug in. So what I'm going to do is, since it's open and available on the other side, I'm going to drill that hole out, and so I have a place to run my probe through. So let's get after it. All right, well, we made a different decision on this, trying to drill a through hole in the firewall. That plug that I was talking about is just glued in most cases, and particularly like on this 91 GMC Sonoma. So what I did was I just had a long extension, if you got a punch or whatever, and a hammer, and just reach up in there and knock that plug out. Now I'm going to have to come up with a rubber grommet to mostly seal up the hole, keep the weather and the elements out. But there's just not enough room to get up in there and adequately drill with the truck all put together like it is. So, but anyway, just knock your plug out, then you've got a nice access hole to run your temperature probe out and get it hooked up to the engine. So that's what we're going to do next, start working on routing the probe. All right, well, we've got the piece mounted, of course. We saw that the other day, and we're looking down through the dash, and we got to try to find a spot that we can route it. You can hear it. Let's see. Look at that. Where'd it go? Let's try something else. Ah, there we go. And there it is. Oh, happy day. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's kind of down here in the dark. There's actually a plug on this side of the head down here where I have this wrench pointing. And we wanted to pull that plug out and install the sensor here so we wouldn't have to drape it across the top of the engine. But as luck would have it, it is pretty well seized in there. I don't exactly have the right tool here at the house to do it, so we're going to just put it in the stock location of the original sensor. We have enough tube to come over and hook up, so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to take the old sensor out and put it in right there. So give us a couple minutes and we'll get this situated and we'll come back. All right, well, we got the sensor ready to come out. One thing I want to show you real quick is you can either use thread tape, but my preferred method is to use a pipe thread sealant compound. And you can see I got it smeared on the threads right there. This stuff seems to work a little better than the tape. It's a little easier to use, certainly a little faster. So anyway, we're gonna get down in here and try to swap this out. Might want to put you a drain pan underneath, because if you have water in the block, you're gonna probably lose a little coolant. So hopefully we won't lose too much. Leaving the radiator cap in helps some. Oh, here she goes. She's gurgling. Get up in there. I only lost a few drops. Alright, she's dribbling, but she's not pouring. Let's see if it's the same wrench size. It should be. There's different sized bushings, and I believe that's actually going to be a 3/4. All right, but I think you get the general idea. Snug everything up, get it to stop leaking. So we'll get it tightened up. We'll be right back. All right, now that you've got your capillary tube installed, it's in the block, it's no longer leaking. You want to have it routed, and you want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with anything that moves, like your steering shaft, which is below it. And it could possibly, if you look right here, come around here, Mr. Cameraman, it could at some point get entangled in your throttle linkage, and that would not be good. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure that you have this thing tied off. Simple zip tie. One thing I haven't talked about with this tube is this is called a capillary tube, and you want to make sure that you don't kink it in any way. Gentle bends, probably of say a 3-inch bend radius, 3 inches is probably okay, but you certainly don't want to make sure that it is not kinked and bent 90 degrees anywhere, because if it is, it's going to not work. It's going to destroy the gauge. So Next thing up, we're gonna do electrical. We're gonna get that little light hooked up. All right, we have the light bulb here, which we want to be able to see this gauge operate at night. So with the placement of where we put it, we're right by the switch. So get you a test light, and you've got, as you can see, you've got power, all constant power. So let's turn the parking lights on and see if we get any power. Let's see. All right, no power there. Whoop. There we go, we got power there. Do we still have power there when we turn the headlights on? We do. So let's check over here. All right, these, that's a constant, and that's a headlight only, and this is both, headlights or parking lights. So this is the wire that we're going to want to tap into. Now I'm going to talk about something here real quick. Not generally a fan of these, except in a kind of situation like that. These are called Scotch locks. These allow you to get onto a circuit without having to skin the wire back or clip the wire and then have to put it back together. It actually pinches over the wire and has a little guillotine that goes in and makes the connection. On a low amp interior circuit like that, I will use these. Still not a great big fan, but where they're not going to see a lot of moisture, they generally won't cause you any problems. So next thing we need to talk about is the ground for this wire. As with most vehicles made today, a lot of the stuff up here on the dash is plastic, so you have to find a place to hook to actually chassis ground. So I made an extension for my ground, ring terminal on one end and a splice to go to my ground wire, and I'll run it down in there. And I found a place on the bottom of the dash up underneath that is that's metal that'll get me to my chassis ground. So we're gonna get after that and get everything hooked up. So all right, to install the Scotch lock, there are two slots. The outer slot goes over the wire, and there's a slot in the back that the wire you're trying to hook in. You push it all the way in that hole until it bottoms out. It has a plastic stop at the bottom of it so that you know you're deep enough. Now, take a pair of pliers and you reach and grab that guillotine and you squeeze and you push it down in there. And see how it goes flat, and then you take this little bail and it locks over it and keeps it held together. And of course you can give it a little tug, make sure that it's solid. That's the size of that. That wire is now connected. So all we got to do now is hook up the ground. So we'll be right back. All right, well, we finalized the install. All the wires are hooked up. Found our chassis ground, got everything hooked up. It's kind of, I don't know if you can see it good. There you go. Be really bright at night, and you can adjust it. Just have to listen to the noise for a minute. I don't know if it's going to dim or brighten with the rest of the dash. I could have messed around and found the wire that did that, but that's okay. As long as it comes on where it can be seen at night was my main concern. All we got to do now is top it off with coolant. Then we're going to crank it up and make sure that the gauge actually operates now. Be right back. All right, we got the gauge installed. Everything looks to be working right. We took it down the road for a quick road test, and the gauge sweep seems to be working like it's supposed to. I want to thank you for coming by the Real World Garage and watching my videos. And as a matter of fact, I want you to watch another one coming on the screen right now.